As I look at John's head, I'm struck by the lower jaw and the way that the whole thing moves forward a bit. So the muscles around the mouth bring the jaw forward. What I'm trying to do is break down these forms so that I really understand how they interact. In other words, how they fit together in order to do it. Now his eyes are deep set, so one of the things that I want to do as I begin to draw the eye is to really accept how far back it is relative to the plane of the nose. One of the things that people have trouble with is seeing the eye in perspective. In other words, that you're seeing the eye from the side, so that you really have to think about the eyeball existing in the position that it's in. What helps me to think about where the eye is, to make two arcs that represent the edge of the eyeball, so that what I'm doing in doing those arcs is imagining how the eyeball is turned, and then to see that the iris sits in the wraparound of the eye in the way that it does. Try to set yourself up with all of the forms before you tackle the eyes. The nose is a basic form, so you're probably going to get to the nose pretty early in the game. But the lips and the eyes, you really should understand where you're at in the head, in the whole form of the head, before you start to try those. Some of the lines I've made are not right. That's a perfectly natural thing to happen, because as you draw, part of your mind is saying, I'm going to try it like this, you know, that this is how I think about that form right at the moment. I may change my mind as I move along, as I see more, so that to accept the process of drawing as a really live process, and not like a dead thing. Oh my God, I can't change anything because I made that line, 5 minutes ago. You can always change things. And as you see here, I'm making a fairly radical change. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to try to see these subtler forms, the forms of the cheek. Here, I'm going to make some lines that are like sculptural lines that I'm feeling as I make that group of lines, that I'm describing a form and not just an edge. I mean, that's one of the huge things about drawing, is that if you can get yourself to draw forms as well as drawing edges. Edges are very attractive. People love them. And of course, we do describe a lot of things with edges, but it's also very important to describe things with groups of lines that are like enclosing lines, that you're enclosing the form with that group of lines. I'm trying to use the hairline to help establish the plane of his brow, that the form of the brow could really be described in two ways. One is that here it really starts to turn around towards the front plane of the brow, and then here we have a kind of flatter plane that might be described that way, and their details, like the, I guess you'd call them the frown lines that come down in the middle. All right, now I'm going to describe a little bit more of what happens under the jaw. It's quite a complex and beautiful the clothes in one way or another are always wrapping themselves around the body. So I really want to feel it moving around the column of his neck. So as I make that curve, I'm really thinking it's moving around the column of his neck. And the rest of the collar comes down. In other words, it has to feel and look like it continues this arc. This arc should be continued here. And there's still not enough head behind the plane of the features. Okay. I want to reinforce the idea of the column of the neck, so I'm making some lines that curl that form around. Now you notice that I've really left till this stage in the drawing to even get involved with what is dark, you know, the idea of the hair being dark and the eyes being dark. These are really, in terms of understanding what I'm looking at, those are really secondary issues. I mean, they're always very nice to finally put them in because they give the drawing more sense of the person. All right. Now I'm going to look for my mistakes. First mistake is this distance from the corner of the eye back to here, which is one of the reasons I guess I didn't get enough distance back here. So I'm going to reestablish the hairline and move it back slightly to give this sense of the brow is he's got a nice broad brow, and by not getting the hairline back far enough, I didn't quite capture that. Well, that is a basic analysis of the forms and how I came to build up those forms. If I were to do a more realistic drawing, some of these things that I had to kind of draw out for myself, I might think about them without having to actually diagram them, as it were. I'm trying in doing these drawings on camera, I'm trying to show people a way of addressing the large issues first and then getting to the details. One of the things that when people are drawing the whole figure or when they're drawing the face, they tend to want to compete with a photograph, to draw the outlines of the head, for instance, and put in the features and then shade in all of the forms. The thing that I'm trying to show people is that a much more vigorous way of seeing the body or seeing the head is to analyze the big forms first, and then to put in the eyes and the lips after you have established how the big forms exist and what the nature of those forms are. Because actually when we look at people, we tend to concentrate on the eyes, and so eyes and hairstyle. And so those are the things that we think give a person their particular visual personality. But in fact, a lot of it has to do with the forms of the head, the basic forms of, how the slant of the brow, for instance, or how deeply the eyes are inset, or how much the nose protrudes out of the cheek. These are all things that are much more fundamental than simply just the shape of the eye or the eye color.